What is going on, everybody, in Wrestling Review Society's YouTube page, twitch.tv/YoKevin, and Real Pro Wrestling's YouTube page as well. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their Thursday to show up here. We already have the comments coming in. Guys, I've already told him this is probably one of the most requested interviews I've had in a very long time, and we're both very happy that we're able to make it happen. But just before I get into my guest, guys, I want to take a chance to thank our amazing sponsor who's making this show happen. Guys, FISSION is the new water bottle company that is sweeping all social media platforms. They're made by the company Circle. This is their sister company, FISSION. And all it is, guys, is a filtered, flavored water bottle. It's just as simple as you put the water into the bottle, you add your filtered flavor pack, screw it in, and you are good to go. It changes the flavor of the water to whatever you want. And FISSION is their new energy drink line. So it's going to give you that burst of energy throughout the day. 0 calories, 0 sugar, no added preservatives. So you get that boost of energy and you don't hit the wall. There's a dial on the front of it. So if you want a little less flavor, you take it down to 1. If you want a little more flavor, you crank it all the way up to 9. You're good all day long. I'm currently rocking the Florida Man flavor, which is a fruit punch flavor, but it is absolutely amazing, guys. The link is in the description of this video. Use my custom link and save 20% on your first purchase and 10% every purchase after that. With that being said, guys, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to go and get my guest in here and get the questions rolling. You guys are already flooding my comment section. So with that being said, guys, you have seen this man all over the independent scene. He is the tag partner of one of your guys' favorite wrestlers, Zach Monstar. He has been on NXT, AEW, and everywhere in between. Ladies and gentlemen, your Reverend of Sin, all hail Ryzin. Ryzin, how are you, buddy?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad that we were finally able to make our schedules link up to allow this conversation.
We have been talking about this for probably the last 6 months, if not more.
Yeah, and during the pandemic, as you guys know, a lot of AEW tapings in Jacksonville have been weekly, and they've been Wednesdays and Thursdays. You know, Wednesdays, of course, for Dynamite, and then Thursdays for some Dark and Elevation and things of that nature. So, obviously, with these taking place on Thursdays, it was very difficult to make our schedules link, but we're here now, so that's all that matters.
Man, that is all that matters. We have comments flooding the comment section. Guys, if you have any questions for Ryzin whatsoever, please send them in. He has already said nothing is off limits. Anything goes. We're going to have a blast these next 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let those run, guys, and I'll get to them just as soon as we can. But one thing that I really wanted to ask you about, so obviously we have the NXT questions, the AEW questions. We're going to get to those, but you recently did something that is a very scary thing to do. Much like everybody else in the wrestling business, or most people, you had your regular 9-to-5 job. You had your everyday job, and you decided to cash in all your chips, go all in on yourself, and really, make a run at what you want to do. What led to that decision, and was it a scary decision to make, or how are you looking back at that decision now?
That's a great question. Actually, a lot of, I was kind of pushed out of that position in the sense of AEW has been running through the pandemic. I was very fortunate to get on right at the beginning of the pandemic and to be able to work with AEW, and so good right off the get-go that I was able to consistently be asked back. And so once that came down the pipeline, I was actually a manager for a software company, if you can believe that, given my devilish aesthetic. But one of the things that I've always been a firm believer in, even in professional wrestling and even in my character, is marketing and advertising. Those are two major principles. So it should come as no surprise that I am big in sales. So anyway, I was a manager for a software company overseeing a sales team, and literally just being spread so thin between AEW and the wrestling, or the sales position, that it was just kind of make a decision, go one way or the other. So of course I'm going all in with, and pun intended, with all elite wrestling, and then just taking that gamble on myself. I'm not a big gambler, man. I just spent the whole last week in Vegas and didn't hardly play any kind of slots or any games or anything like that. So when I'm actually taking a gamble on myself, it's actually a very calculated risk. I don't really do anything without knowing full well that I'm making the best decision for myself and my livelihood.
No, absolutely. I just imagine, it being, I pretty much did the same thing, not as far as wrestling goes, but being a full-time streamer, I had my 9 to 5 job. I went down to part-time. I worked just long enough to hold my certification at that job, but this is pretty much, I kind of put all my chips in on myself to see how this would work out. And I know it was terrifying for me. So that's a question I really wanted to ask because I kind of look up to you in a way that you did that. And one of the decisions I made was, even though I'm not a wrestler, I'm something completely different. I was like, there's a lot of people out here doing it. And I just seen the post where you had done it. I was like, the universe is trying to tell me something. So let me give it a shot. That way I have no regrets. You know what I mean?
Of course. And definitely in the same boat. I've been very privileged with the opportunity that has been afforded me through the pandemic to work with All Elite Wrestling. And there was no looking back. It was, go all in, as I mentioned before, and bet on myself. And so far, so good. Everything's been great. It's been great to be able to focus on my physical fitness, my diet, and everything that goes along with being a professional wrestler, expanding my bookings, working on my marketing. It is all just, it's become my 9 to 5. It's become my full-time job. And that's why I'm here now and so far succeeding. And I plan to continue to do so, of course.
Absolutely. I want to go and show some love to these comments. We got Primal Prince, a very big supporter of my Twitch channel. He says he has a coloring book. Yes, we have the Ryzin coloring book right here. You guys have got to look at some of these pictures. They are freaking amazing. I'll post some pictures in the Discord of inside the book, but this one's actually autographed, so it ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And you could get it on Amazon along with my other #1 bestseller, Hell of a Confession, in which is a full-fledged chapter book that I had penned myself, accumulating everybody's naughty and dirty and risque confessions that they would only confess to their reverend of sin. I compiled those, kind of like a naughty chicken soup for the soul. And so those are all compiled in there as well. Gives the name of the person, the sex of the person, and their location, but that's it. So you don't know anonymously who contributed these stories. And they are everywhere from funny to wild. And then, of course, for the more PG side of things, we do have, of course, the coloring book that is flying off the shelves as well and can be purchased at any wrestling show as well as Amazon.
It's pretty entertaining stuff. Ryzin, this is your first time on the show, but I got to let you know, Satanic Panic, your tag team, is massive on my Twitch channel. And I just wanted to let you know that because that's what these are. These are little pictures of yours and Zach's entrance. And everybody is posting them. Everybody is loving the fact that you're here. And speaking of one Zach Monstar, he says, Ryzin is my spirit animal. He also says you're a beautiful man.
Well, the sentiment is equal. So we feel the same about each other, which is why the Satanic Panic works so well. I was happy to resurrect him back into my debut into Atomic Revolutionary Wrestling. And even though our paths have led us different ways through ARW, the brotherhood of the Satanic Panic lives on and will continue to live on. And I imagine we will cross paths again as a duo in the future.
Oh, I'm sure of it. And you kind of hit vaguely on this next question, but a question from Face Dustin. He's one of my moderators here. I'm Heel Kevin, so of course he had to be Face Dustin. He says, "How was Satanic Panic formed? Is there any more detail you want to go into on that?"
I think that Alex Red, the promoter of ARW, had seen my work. He had, complimented my, he had seen a couple of the independent events that I had done for like USA Pro and stuff like that. And then when I had the Freeze It Elite series with Matt Hardy, he really latched onto that. And then similarly, as I'm running that parallel path, Monstar had done the, the kind of the cinematic match himself.
The Purge match.
The Purge match where he ended up, dying in that match. And so it was kind of just a perfect storm of things coming together. My schedule had opened up, and so he had reached out to me, Alex did, and brought this idea forth. And one thing led to another, and there's a video out there where I actually resurrected Monstar back into the world of professional wrestling, and it took off from there. So we had teamed up, and the rest is history.
And you guys complement each other so well. The first time I saw you guys was at an ARW show, and I knew right then and there I that was my first time seeing either one of you, and I knew right then and there that I had to know more about you guys. I actually walked up to you during the intermission and said, "Hey, I really want to get you guys on the show," and that's kind of where this whole plan kind of took place a little bit. But your guys' entrance is a thing of freaking beauty. I just got to say, I've never been able to actually tell you that. Your guys' entrance is freaking amazing. But I want to ask you, how long have you been involved in wrestling? When did you first get involved with the independent scene? And how long did it take you to really feel comfortable as a wrestler?
Well, I've been wrestling since 2003, if you can believe that. So this is my 18th year in professional wrestling. I started way back when I was, young lad. I was 17 years old as
I think we actually have a picture right here.
Hey.
Look at that guy.
So that's actually a little later. That's a few years in. When I first started, I was extremely I looked emaciated. A lot of people were chanting eat a sandwich and anorexic because I was really tiny and I had long stringy hair, and of course wore, to try to hide my skinniness, I wore a big baggy shirt, which actually added insult to injury. So but yeah, that was about maybe 5 years after I had debuted, where I had actually for a job in sales and marketing for a magazine, doing advertising sales. They had asked if I would be willing to cut my hair, and at the time it's do I jump into a career path where I can actually eat and all this while pursuing wrestling, or do I keep my long hair for the sake of wrestling? So that's, but yeah, anyway, I could go off on a tangent on that. But yeah, so 17, going on 18 years in the professional wrestling world. I've done literally everything I could. I'm originally from Colorado and had done just about everything you could imagine in Colorado, where I had basically traveled up and down the entire Midwest section, Texas, South Dakota, North Dakota, into Canada, Winnipeg area, and everywhere in between, New Mexico, just Kansas, you name it, as I said, Missouri, everywhere that you could actually wrestle there. And I still wasn't getting the exposure that I desired. And it was doing extra work for the WWE in Sioux City, Iowa, where I actually had the gusto to pull William Regal aside and ask him what he suggested I do. And he said, well, and this was right around the time when NXT wasn't quite there yet, but it was coming to fruition. And he said, Tampa's great for SCW right now, but if I were you, I would make the move to the East Coast and go to Florida. And that's all I had to hear. About a year and a half, 2 years after hearing that, I had saved up enough funds and packed up, and we moved out here. And yeah, that's the history from there.
That was my next question is what brought you to Florida? Because I knew you weren't, a native of Florida. I knew you had made the move there, but that was my next question. So I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. You talk about being involved in pro wrestling for 18 years, and I normally save this question for the last part, but I'm dying to see what your answer is going to be. And it's something I like to ask a lot of people because you get such an array of different answers. So being involved in pro wrestling for 18 plus years, if you were able to go back in time 18 years in the past when you were just starting and give yourself some kind of advice on what to expect out of the wrestling business, or advice to give yourself, 18 years in the past that you really could have used, what would that advice be?
That's a fantastic question. I do typically get the same questions as I do podcast to podcast, but this is actually a tremendous question, and I'm happy to answer it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I always love getting asked the more obscure questions, other than, who's my dream?
Where did you go to training? When did you start? How did this happen? How did that happen? I tell everybody, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I get a lot of people asking me, how do we start a podcast? How do we do this? And I tell everybody, if you're going to interview wrestlers or celebrities, don't look at their wiki page. It's the same questions every time.
Over and over. Yeah, it becomes Groundhog Day. But no, to answer your question, the advice I would give myself is, one, I had always had the marketing, the advertising. I was a brand. No matter what character, whatever evolution of Ryzen, and this one will be the one that will see me through till the very end. The current configuration as just Ryzen, but no matter what, I always gave all in as far as my marketing and advertising and ability to promote myself, which is a huge thing that a lot of people just still don't grasp. The marketing side of things is so important. That is why, I could say without batting an eye that even the Satanic Panic, Jack Monster and myself, we always have lines, all the way wrapped around during intermission for our merchandising, because it really does come down to your merchandising and stuff like that. But to go, the long-winded answer, to go back and answer your question is, I would have told myself two things. One, work more on your physique. Take your diet and your physical physique way more serious, because I was, as I said, I was 150 pounds soaking wet, and that was if you put rocks in my gear. I didn't have much money at all. I was actually living on my own since I was 15 years old, which I know is a whole story all in itself. So I had no money, but I should have invested in more protein shakes and stuff to get myself the nutrients, and just focus more on my physical build. So that would be one big thing, because I think if I, at an earlier age, if I had more of a physique, I would have gone places far faster. And the second thing that I would have told myself is to limit my risk. I was definitely a careless independent wrestler, as a lot of us are. I had taken so many risks in front of 10, 20, 30 fans, that were unnecessary, as far as jumping off the top of buildings, whatever, jumping off the top of ladders through tables, which is all great and definitely has its place in wrestling, but it should have been reserved for bigger crowds and bigger things. And even my bumping back then was so reckless. You're invincible when you're young. Everybody knows that. And,
Absolutely.
And then the older I've gotten, the more that I focused on the storytelling and the and pulling that stuff out. I'm still very much able to do that, but to pick and choose your spots, because it'll add longevity to your career. And fortunately for me, again, being 18 years in, I haven't had too much overall damage, but I definitely would have told myself, hey, let's save these for the future, because you're definitely going to need them.
It's like we said in the beginning, before we went live. Leave them wanting more. Less is more. Sometimes you don't have to go out there and do A, B, and C. Do A and B, and leave them wanting C and D.
Exactly.
I really want to address this comment, because I actually have something that I think you're going to enjoy. Prince Primal says, "I love the bits on BTE. With you, Nyla, and Vicky. We recently had John Silver on the show, and we talked about his interaction on BTE, and the ways where he had to hide laughing. There's a clip on here that I have for you, and if the viewers haven't seen it, we're going to roll it for a little bit, and then I'll have my question after. But I really, really like this clip, so let's take a look at this really quick.
I'm actually a really good Uno player.
Fuck Uno! Uno is the worst! I hate Uno so much. I don't care how harsh it is.
So my question for you is, when you're in the middle of these skits, John Silver's very open about his inability to stop from laughing. How do you keep it under control? Do you ever hit these points where you just can't help but laugh? Because I've never seen you break to this point. And you do some of the funniest things I've seen. So how do you keep yourself from laughing? How do you stay in control?
That's a good question. I think that I'm in a very fortunate headspace that, and I've loved improv my whole life. So when I was in high school, I would always do improv, theater, all that kind of stuff, even into my elementary, middle school, blah, blah, blah. I've always been obsessed with theater and movies and things cinematically. So once the camera is rolling, even though I know that I'm going to hit certain punchlines and I'm going to be funny and my the back of my mind is running with like improv of what to say next and rolling off of what the next person is going to say. I think that at least even the combination of Nyla, Vicky, and myself have a really good formula of just not breaking each other's character and laughing and stuff. So a lot of what you actually see is very organic and is usually done in very minimal takes. If anything, it's a sound check or a sound quality thing. But when we're actually rolling, usually we could hit everything in just about one take. So it's a mindset. Everything's freaking hilarious. I love watching it back, and that's when I'll actually crack up and laugh at myself. But it's definitely an art to not break during your skits, and we're hilarious. We are a hilarious trio, and I would say between the trio of us, which is now Amen, ANTN, for those of you who did watch that clip that you had just showed there. That's our group name. But between that and the Dark Order, I think that it's safe to say that we've really started taking over a lot of BTE and have reached a lot of positive feedback.
It's so entertaining. And I have another question for you coming from the audience. But just before we do, talking about not breaking, throughout wrestling, we used to hear stories all the time of, one of the guys who never broke character for over 30 years, The Undertaker. And people would talk about how their goal was to go out there and break them. With you guys being able to control yourselves so effortlessly, is it ever a goal of yours to see what can I do to get these people to break? Like, is that ever in the back of your head?
Yeah, I mean, and especially during the independents, it becomes a little more serious when you're in the ring and you know that you're going to be seen in front of hundreds of thousands of, maybe a million viewers.
Of
so
course.
Things definitely take a much more serious approach, at least with me. But when it comes to the independents, I could tell you so many stories of being on the independents and, there was this guy, Caleb Crush, he's one of my best friends who represents Colorado, where him and I used to do a tour of like Lucha Libre events, and they would always put us against each other because we were the only two dudes that didn't speak Spanish, but they liked that we would come in, and they were, good paydays for doing Lucha Libre shows. So anyway, it became so monotonous, so constant that, we would try to break each other the whole time in our matches. Still to the fans, they would see, a very good match still, but there was little things that we would do. Whereas one in particular that I'll leave you with is I had bumped him a little too far out to hit my swanton bomb. So once I got up to the top, and again, we're talking about my long bleach blonde hair at this time, for any of you who are historians and looked that stuff up. But I finally removed my shirt and all that. So anyway, I climbed to the top rope, and the wrestler had just gotten really hot, the movie The Wrestler. So as I'm looking down at him, I'm like, he's way too far. So then I just started like with sad face, like I'm about to cry, and I did the old ram jam like I'm going to have a heart attack. So I started doing that, and I did the ram jam and hit the headbutt, which as he's laying on the ground looking up, he just completely broke and started. So things like that. But there's definitely a time and place for it. Wrestling is so fun in that environment that you are able to kind of do things like that. And if you write it just right, you could actually have a lot of humorous stuff. I try to add a little comedic element into every single one of my matches, and actually still take a very serious approach to the matches.
Oh no, and you are definitely one of the. I'm a very traditional wrestling fan. Like, I love the NWA, the storytelling, and I was never really one for like the death match or the comedy wrestling or anything like that. And after watching guys like you and Zach, I've told Zach this all the time. I used to believe that wrestling was black and white. And after watching guys like you and Zach, now it's like wrestling is black and white, but there's also oranges and purples and greens and blues. There's a spot for everything. And I'm starting to leave my closed-mindedness, which is a handicap of my own, and really appreciate a lot of stuff. And you and Zach played a huge role in opening my eyes to certain things. And two wrestlers that Kelsey Reagan and Wheezy T, I hated intergender wrestling. Could not stand it. It goes against everything I was raised to believe. They had such an amazing match. It opened my eyes to it. And through watching guys like you and them, it's really opened my eyes. So I appreciate everything you guys do for the wrestling business.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and you know, and that's one of the things. As I said, I used to have the crazy wrestling matches and stuff like that. Never was into the hardcore, so you never really caught me doing any of that stuff. That's more Zach Monstar's thing. But yeah, I'm a storyteller at heart. If I could, what we're doing in those 8, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 3 minutes for some of these dark matches is we're making a movie. We're going out there and we are making a movie. There is the protagonist, the antagonist. There is a story that needs to be told, and that's what I'm in the business in. I'm in the business of making movies, so that's how I approach each and every wrestling match. So you're not going to need 50 Canadian destroyers. You're not going to need all this over the top hoopla. If you tell a good story, that's what's going to resonate with the audience. At least that's been my firm belief. So we're making movies. Me being a horror historian and a horror buff, I obviously lean, of course, a lot of that stuff. But there's definitely a story to be told in every match.
And I definitely agree with you, and you do it, like I said, so effortlessly. We have a question coming in from Face Dustin. Says, do you have any pre-match rituals?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, not really. I get oiled up and all my normal stuff, but I really get in the zone. I can't listen to music. I know a lot of guys will throw on their headset and they'll listen to music, or I literally just pace my match in my head over and over. I visualize it. I'm a huge believer in manifestation and the universe and the law of attraction and all of that kind of stuff. So one of the big things that I do is I literally will pace back and forth backstage, and I'm running each and every scenario in my head. If this hits just right, what kind of mannerism should I throw? If the crowd chants this, maybe I could counteract by doing this. So there's definitely a roller coaster of things that I am able to that I'm envisioning, and that's pretty much my pre-match ritual. That's about it. Of course, getting yourself oiled up and loose, but all the while I'm just building the movie. I'm the director, and I'm writing the script minutes before going out. That's probably the best way to do it.
Fair enough. And you know, everybody has their own different rituals that they do. Me personally, I would have to listen to some kind of music or something like that. But you know, to each their own. I do have a picture of you pre-match that I want to throw up, but it goes along the lines of a different question. One of the beautiful things about being an independent wrestler, you know, not contracted by a major company where you're solely there with that company, is you have the ability to go to different territories, different areas, learn from different people. And I really, really like this picture. This is you, Zach, and that is Sin Bodhi, one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling. And I've seen you wrestle guys like Sin, Gangrel, Shannon Moore. How influential have these guys been into your career, and how much has it helped you being able to not only share a locker room with these guys, but also share the ring with them?
Yeah, and as you can see, I'm smiling from ear to ear. And then, you know, to take that furthermore, you know, Thrasher's taking the picture. You
the
know,
headbangers, of course.
Yes, of course. So it's just, I have a tendency of thinking to myself, if you would have told younger me that this was going to happen, I would have never believed. I mean, I would have wanted to believe you because, again, manifestation. People in school, I never got the greatest grades. You know, this is just kind of a tidbit, but I failed out of school. I don't think, but I'm very, in my opinion, intelligent. I think that school failed me. I didn't fail school, and I believe that wholeheartedly because, like, there was nothing I said I was ever going to do but be a professional wrestler. And that was one of the big things is like, I remember a language arts teacher saying like, well, that's a pipe dream. You definitely need to get rid of that. So anyway, fast forward, working with these talented men and women that I, you know, grew up idolizing or emulating or whatever the case. And then of course, people with great minds like Sin Bodhi, who has done it all as well. It's surreal and it's amazing. And just to be able to have those stories that I'm going to keep with me for the rest of my life is absolutely amazing. And it goes on from, you know, I have stories that could last days of working and interacting with some of the top names in the industry. It's absolutely an unbelievable experience. And that picture is just so funny because you got three men putting on their makeup in front of a mirror, like, high school girls, and it's such a fun photo. So backstage, pre-game, right before I get into that headspace, it's all fun and games. I love interacting with the boys and girls and just shooting the shit with them.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you why I love that picture so much. Obviously one of my best friends, Zach is in there, you're in there. Sin, who I effing love watching that man work. But that was the first show I went to where I met you and Zach. That was the very first show I'd ever went to, and got introduced to you guys. So for different reasons, but that picture is kind of special to me, and I really wanted to show it on here because that was the day where like I said, I got to meet you guys, and it started to open my eyes to the blues and greens and purples of pro wrestling. So I had to show that one on here. But as you know, those pictures are on your Instagram, and I was scrolling through your Instagram because I like to ask, as you can tell, I like to ask more personal questions or more questions, not questions everyone's going to ask. And one picture that I seen reoccurring on your Instagram was the military gravestone. You seem to be a big supporter of the military. I was wondering if I can ask, what in a world where it's so controversial to support certain things, what about the military, what is it about the military that you choose supporting so much? Because I'm a vet myself, and I thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely. And it's, without going on too long of a tangent of it, how could you not support our troops? Political views aside, these men and women of the armed forces, they are there to protect the country, to be able to do this, to do this video freely, to be able to say what we want, to be able to put makeup on in front of a mirror and being a guy. These are some of the freedoms that America has. And there's a lot of other countries. I just got interviewed by a Russian girl. That video will drop there in the next few weeks. And she's actually over here, and a huge wrestling fan, and she just has been doing a lot of AEW interviews and stuff like that. And it was astonishing to hear some of the stuff that, she's very open-minded. So when she's seeing Pride Month out there, she's like, just floored by how much America is progressive in that thought. And so I don't understand my dad, the reason why you see those gravestones is because my dad was a Vietnam veteran, and my dad was a U.S. Marine. He was a Lance Corporal in the U.S. Marine. And I had seen, the best and worst of that guy. And, and to give that sacrifice, I have some family that have been in the military. It's astonishing to me that anybody would be, I guess it'd be fair to say I'm anti-war. I would never want to go to war. I want to see peace all across the globe, if possible. But for the men and women who serve the country and take care of us and make sure that we are free and that we can lay our heads down at night for the most part and be able to avoid any and all disasters, I can't fathom why we would be against that. So I've always been a big supporter of that.
Well, I truly thank you for your support. I'm sorry to hear about your father passing, however long ago it may have been. But you know what they say about Marines: they don't die; they just go to hell and regroup.
That's a good way to look at it. And it's been many years. When I was 15, as I had mentioned or alluded to earlier, I was living with him at the time when he passed away. Instead of finding an adult to watch over me, I actually just kept on with the lease that he had signed and just lived on my own from 15 on. So as I said, that's a whole different ballgame in itself. But
that's another show for another day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get into what everybody has been asking about since we started. I haven't been ignoring your guys' questions. I just knew we were going to spend a lot of time on this topic. But, I alluded to earlier that we recently had John Silver on the show, and he's another guy who did extra work for WWE and then AEW. And he kind of talked about, how AEW just felt different. He felt at home there, that he was grateful for what WWE had done for him. But he never really felt like it was the right fit until AEW called and he went there. As a guy who did work with NXT and now AEW, do you kind of relate to the same way, or did you have a different experience?
No, absolutely. I think you said it best, and he said it best. John Silver absolutely hit the nail on the head with that. AEW feels different, and that's 100% the truth. To be afforded the opportunity to be with them for this entire year, it's been just over a year now, has been absolutely incredible. And just again, it feels different. It doesn't matter if you're the bottom of the totem pole. It doesn't matter if you are the top guy, Tony Khan himself. Everybody there has just a more collective, uh, you know, all for one kind of thing. We are a team, we are a unit. Everybody understands their position, their place. It doesn't mean that people aren't aspiring to climb up the ladder, but it just is definitely a much more family environment as opposed to my time with the WWE or NXT, doing mainly extra work for NXT. I was very fortunate. I wrestled 8 or 9 matches for WWE NXT TV, and but again, even from the first couple of matches I had there, as opposed to the first couple of matches that I've had or that I had in AEW. Now I think I've had about 40 matches in AEW, so that's a different discussion all in itself. But it definitely does hit different. They're much more by the book, and I don't really have any ill will to say about NXT at all, but it just feels different. That's all I can really say is I think in my heart of hearts, AEW is the place. They are the future. They are everything that is right with professional wrestling going forward. And I firmly believe that. So everything that John Silver said, I echo.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's no ill will or no disrespect towards NXT. It's just AEW feels like home. And I can definitely pick that up from you and from John and the other guys that I've been fortunate enough to interview. I want to be respectful of your time, so I have 2 final questions for you. One that's been coming through pretty much nonstop. Can you talk to you're working the independent scene. You've done some extra work with NXT. I believe I saw you wrestling Drew McIntyre and stuff like that. But you're working the independent scene. You're still putting the miles on your car, putting one foot in front of the other, and then you get the call from AEW. Can you talk to us about how you got the call, how they reached out, your mindset behind it, how you were feeling, and just your journey from getting that call to now, like you said, being a year in? You've been on more episodes of Dark than you haven't been. You've got a pretty good ratio of when you're going to be there. So can you please just talk to us about when they reached out, where you were at with it, and your excitement level moving forward?
Yeah, again, going back to the original topic at hand where I said that it's all about marketing, advertising, and stuff like that. I am definitely a go-getter. My opportunities that I've been, the opportunities I've had, I have worked my ass off to get. I have, reached out to all the right people. I've done all the work that there is to make this opportunity happen. It doesn't come overnight. It's not easy for anybody, and I can't even tell you the amount of no's that I have gotten over the years. You've got to go through the no's to get to the yeses. I was told no multiple times at NXT. I was told multiple times no for a WWE tryout, in which I eventually succeeded and got a full WWE Performance Center tryout. I was told no multiple times at Impact Wrestling, which we didn't talk here, but then I also had 3 dark matches and wrestled on Impact against Drew McIntyre as well. So fun fact, I wrestled Drew Galloway on Impact, and then he literally left that same taping or just a couple of tapings after and went right into NXT, and then I ended up working him right there just a few short weeks later. So that's one thing that is completely different. But when AEW came around, when the pandemic started, they were exclusive to Jacksonville. Immediately I reached out and said, hey, I'm here if you guys need anything, because there was a January 1st New Year's episode of AEW that was at Bailey's place.
I was there.
Oh, there you go. So I was backstage as Justin, just a normal extra as they had, and it was just rubbing elbows with people and saying they didn't have Dark, they didn't have any of this concept at that time yet. But I was just there and, was just, introducing myself to any and everybody and said, hey, if you ever need me for absolutely anything, I'm here for you. You know, and one thing led to another, and once the pandemic started, a couple of weeks in, as they were acquiring different talents to start using for dark and stuff like that. Fortunately, I was one of the first on their call list. So it was in the middle of the night one night. I woke up to go to work the next day and had checked my phone, and they had actually asked me at like 2:45 in the morning if I could possibly be there the next day because they had something that they wanted, they needed me for. So I called work. Said, oh, I know I haven't managed. Again, I'm a manager. I was high up in the company. So I called and said, hey, I know I have a management meeting here in about 20 minutes, but I don't feel very well. I'm going to have to not come in. And then I sped off to Jacksonville, and maybe it was that I was able to answer the call so quick and be there, be very punctual. But after that night, they were like, oh yeah, come back next week. And then I came back the following week, and then I had a good conversation with Cody Rhodes, and he said, hell, we like you, you're doing great work, so keep coming back. And it was stepping stones. I just kept building and building until I became, full-time regular with them.
Just putting one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
Very nice, man. And I know you have dinner plans, and after being married for 4 years, I know not to intrude on a woman's plans. So I do want to be respectful of your time. I do have one final question for you, because you're a guy who, I mean, let's be honest, the gimmick could be very hit or miss. It could offend a lot of people. It could hit home with a lot of people. You're a guy who's not afraid to be you. You're very comfortable in your own skin, and you're a very creative person. In your mind, what do you think pro wrestling is missing? What do you think is one ingredient that pro wrestling is missing that could really change the way it's going? Because I'm an AEW mark. I'll go ahead and say it. Everybody on my Twitch knows that I'm a mark for AEW. I love it. But Raw gets a little hard to watch. 3 hours of it, and these are my opinions, not Ryzins. This is all me. What do you think that pro wrestling is missing, if anything, that could really turn it around and make it more interactive?
Well, again, not to lean one way just because I'm working for them, but AEW has it right. Ryzin, the Reverend of Sin, would have never had the opportunity to do that platform.
Not even close.
Even when I started wearing the devil stuff you could watch the match with Drew McIntyre, I was told like my horns were too cartoony, things like that. And so as you can see, if you see that, I have kind of this emo hair.
I was wondering why the hair wasn't spiked.
And because I was like, well, at least that still looks spooky and stuff. But anyway, so that is the reason why they said, oh, well, that'll never work, the horns. And I thought, again, I think marketing, I think aesthetically, if you see a guy with horns for hair on a T-shirt, on a postcard, on a flyer, as dressed as a reverend with horns in his hair, automatically you look at it and you go, that guy is a reverend of sin. I don't even have to call myself such in order for you to see that. So I always thought, and I like looking different. And a lot of people say it's like, reminds them of like, I can't remember now the term, but like basically thrash rock of the 90s or whatever. You got like the band Prodigy, who he had similar things. He had like no hair though, but he did do a little bit of horns up here. But that's always been my take on it. And AEW, they say, here, go out and show us why Reverend Ryzin is going to get over. Show us why an Orange Cassidy is going to work. Show us why, it's infinite. The librarian is going to work. Whatever the case. People, there's too many cooks in the kitchen in other places where they're trying to dictate what you should be. And AEW has it flipped. They say, we like this idea. Show me how it's going to work. Show me why it's going to work. And, the Nyla and Vicky and myself thing, perfect opportunity there too. They saw, this Reverend would be good. We dressed him as nuns. What if we did this whole thing? And what if we brought Ryzin into it? And so that's how it happened. Again, if they didn't ever see that character, they would have never known. And this is just a little backtail that would get people excited. Is every time I walk in, I believe a lot in the, in being friends with everybody from top to bottom as well. And so a lot of the cameramen, the crew, the ring crew, all of them, I absolutely adore them. And when I walk into the arena, they all go, "Wah!" So like that kind of thing is again, one, catchy. So obviously I'm making some sort of impression. And two, again, that would have been something that was organic. I didn't know what I was going to do when they said, here's some entrance music, here's your Titantron, or, go out and do something. So I came out, I was brooding, and then I just, my hands up. And then it became my calling for every entrance I have. And so that's definitely sticking. Again, just something I was able to make work. And hey, and bonus, we do have a couple extra minutes here that we are able to talk. So
Awesome.
just so you know, I got the green light.
Awesome, great, because I actually have another question for you that I was or not really a question, but a retort, and then maybe get some feedback from you. But I think the reason I really like AEW and why a lot of fans are gravitating toward AEW is with other companies. It's been we've heard the term cookie cutter. Everything's been really, really cookie cutter. Like, this is the stamp of what a wrestler has to be. These are the parameters. This is what it is, and nothing else. AEW kind of took that cookie cutter and threw it against the wall and said, "Get that shit out of here. We're willing to give you this chance. Be your own person and show us why it would get over." And just being able to see these different styles of characters, like you said, Ryzin would have never worked in another place. But because of the birth of AEW and the freedom that they give, we're able to see this. And newsflash, it fucking worked.
Yeah. And, maybe it's not fair to say that it would never have worked other places.
There would have been a lot of hands in the cookie jar, in my opinion.
Exactly. Because you have your Aleister Black type characters, and you have that kind of stuff. But again, they would have been trying to write the way they would see Ryzin, and I probably wouldn't even be able to be Ryzin, to be honest with you. So, again, it's just something that I'm so grateful that I'm able to showcase and demonstrate who I am. And I have so many ideas. You guys have no idea on what's on the horizon. Huh? See what I did there? As far as the character of Ryzin and going forward.
So, the Great Harley Race, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, had this famous saying, everyone has their bump card, and when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Not saying that you're anywhere near that, but when that bump card is full, is there a chance we'd ever see Ryzin as a, owning his own school or being an instructor or training the next generation?
I definitely have done seminars, and I'm open to that. Not really. Like, the school would be out of the question for me. I would be more than happy to do seminars. And my focus when the traditional seminars these days are like, roll up drill, show me a 5-minute match, this is what you can do to improve your character work, or this is what you can do to improve your technical skill. Mine wouldn't be like that. Again, I think that there's a huge emphasis missing out of professional wrestling that goes to marketing, merchandising. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record bringing up those terms constantly, but I definitely know that that's definitely something that a lot of independent wrestlers who are starving. Again, I was a starving independent wrestler who, as I said, was skin and bones. But so the only thing that I had was, hey, I'm getting paid $10 or the hot dog and a handshake or whatever. But hey, if I sell 2 or 3 of these promo kits for $5 each, that's $15, and then I can eat tonight or whatever, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing, but that's the truth. And early on in my career, and if people are like, "Oh, I'm not in it to make money," well, then why are you beating yourself up? Why are you killing yourself? To appease yourself. I don't agree with that model. I never have. So my goal would be to influence the young people to do better with their marketing and their self-advertising, and then, of course, making money where you can. I definitely would see myself in a managerial role and staying on air as needed. But honestly, no matter what I dive into, I go completely into. So if I ever walked away from pro wrestling, if I woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, I just don't want to do professional wrestling anymore, whatever it is that I would do next, I would do it to my full capability. I do weddings as an ordained minister as Ryzin, which I just did one last weekend, and then on top of that, I lost my train of thought besides ordained minister. Basically, no matter what it is that I would do outside of that, I think I would be successful at. I host burlesque shows as well, and those have been very popular. And again, all under the umbrella of Ryzin, of Reverend Ryzin. So Wicked Ways Cabaret had seen the character and said, "Oh my gosh, can you host? Are you a good talker?" And that's actually one of my biggest skill sets that people in AEW have yet to see. I know people that follow me on the independents do get to see, and people who follow me on social media get to see, but that's one thing that the big audience in AEW have yet to see. So when that opportunity gets unleashed where I'm able to talk, that's going to be a whole different ballgame, I rest assured. So once that happened, just as I said, I go on tangents, but the burlesque show, I'm a great host. And so I can always dive into that. There's, I consider myself limitless to my future and my opportunities.
And who doesn't want to get married by Reverend Ryzin? I'm just saying, that'd be one of the coolest things ever.
And it went off of the hitch the other day. It was a beautiful ceremony. And then you get a pick. Do you want Reverend Ryzin, or do you want a more traditional, regular, looking Ryzin that you see presented to you before you right now?
I want full gimmick Ryzin.
Oh, yeah. Hallelujah.
Ryzin, final question for you, man. I know she gave us the wink, but I still want to be respectful of both her time and yours. Final question for you, man, before we wrap things up. What is one thing about Ryzin that your fans may not know? Whether it be a hobby, whether it be something you enjoy, what is something about Ryzin that your fans may not know that you would like them to know?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's the only ones I have, man.
I mean, other than what I've alluded to, that I have a big passion for sales. I have a big passion for public speaking. I have a big passion for anti-bullying. Maybe here's something that nobody would know, or maybe some people do know, is I was actually born with a cleft lip and cleft palate. And for anybody who has seen the type of trauma that anybody who is born with a cleft lip can attest to, it messes up a lot of kids' futures. The bullying is
it's the worst.
Awful. And I can only imagine that it's worse now with the social media and the ability you couldn't just get away like you could in school. Once 3 o'clock or 3:45 or whatever time you got out of school, then once that final bell rang and you left, that was it for the day. You could go home. But nowadays it's constant. So it's a very unfortunate thing. So I've been also being even a reverend of sin. I think that a lot of people, and I think that through my social media, a lot of people have seen that I am not what they expect. Because I'm into the occult, it doesn't mean that I'm not a positive person. It doesn't mean that I'm not fighting the good fight. I just don't do it under the guise of religion or anything like that. I believe that we are our own God. But anyway, going back to the cleft lip thing, that was hard for me growing up. To have a cleft lip, I got made fun of relentlessly from elementary through middle, so on and so forth, and had to really up my public speaking skills because I had a lisp really bad, which I still probably kind of have a little bit of one, but so speech impediments, all these other things that come with having a cleft lip, I had to work through. And so I think a lot of people don't know that. And then on top of that, a lot of people either have bad surgeons or they got dealt a bad hand, unfortunately. And as much as they try to clear it up, it doesn't come out looking as aesthetically pleasing as they would look. So I think I'm lucky. I had 11 surgeries growing up from 2 months old on till I was about 12, I think, or 13 was my last surgery. But anyway, so there are things I want to contribute to in the future, like Smile Train and stuff like that, which is deals with giving kids who have cleft palates free surgeries if they can't afford it. So things like that. But definitely the fact that I was born with one and I persevered. So when I meet people who have had them or are down on the dumps or have been bullied, I say, hey, look, it's not the end all be all. You can persevere. And not only can you persevere, but you can be quite attractive. I know I am. You can be
shameless shill. Shameless shill.
But it's not the end all be all. You can get girlfriends, you can get wives, you can get boyfriends, or whatever the case. Just forget what the bullies say and continue to be you, and your personality and everything is going to thrive above it. And yeah, pretty much anything that you can do with your body and stuff like that, I believe, where there's a will, there's a way, and you're able to persevere past that.
Absolutely. Just my 2 cents on it. I think bullying today is so much worse for the simple fact, back in the day, back when we were going to, well, definitely when I was in school, when you were in school, if you were going to talk shit to somebody, you had that very real possibility you were going to get punched in the face. Now you get to hide behind a keyboard and that threat's gone, so you could really say whatever you want, and it's absolutely disgusting on all accounts. I've made it no secret. I've been bullied, and being young and stupid, I figured, hey, if I want to stop being bullied, I have to join the bullies, and I did that too, very shamefully. And it's just absolutely disgusting.
You are forgiven and involved of your bullying ways.
Well, thank you. I've tried my best to. I've reached out to a lot of classmates and apologized and tried to make it right as best I could. And I try to live a better life now and speak up for those who are being bullied or have been bullied. But I completely agree with everything you were saying. And, being picked on for a lisp, there's another guy who has a lisp. You may or may not know him. His name's Cody Rhodes.
That's right.
So, I mean, I'm just saying the only limits that you have are the limits you set for yourself is what I choose to believe. But Ryzin, I'm so grateful for this. We're supposed to be 45 minutes now, hour that we've had with you. Just before we wrap up, I know I have it scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If there's anything you want to plug, anywhere that they can follow you, find you, anything you want to, go ahead. This is your time, man, uninterruptedly. Let everybody know what you want to say, where they can follow you, your merch, where they can get it, anything you want, man.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for allowing me the stage to be able to talk to you, and thank you for everybody who joined in. And I hope that you guys have found this educational, and I hope that this continues to grow the congregation of Ryzins. I'm a firm believer that what I am building is a congregation. I really see myself as a reverend of the people, and I will continue this story arc through and through. I have limitless possibilities for those who have seen the new logo that I actually now own and trademark, to get away from the traditional pentagram and stuff, because again, maybe some people might shy away from it. It doesn't mean that I'm not looking at the sinful side of things or the darker side of things, but now I have a logo that is attributed to me. I own it, and it is going to be our symbol. It is going to be what the congregation leads with. And you can get those shirts that are repping that new logo on Pro Wrestling Tees/Rob Ryzin. They have yet to change it to just Ryzin when I was originally Rob Ryzin. So anyway, but ProWrestlingTees.com/Rob Ryzin to get all of your wrestling shirts. Live at events, you can get your prayer candles, you can get your wrestling buddies, you can get your 8x10, you can get your coloring book, as you see right there. You can get your
it's freaking amazing. I'm going to post pictures in Discord. Because the camera's not really picking it up. Well, maybe it is. It's freaking fantastic.
Yes, and again, I don't do anything. If I release something, it cannot be half-assed. So again, follow me on all major social media. This is just the beginning. Everything that I've been through for the year with AEW, this is just the beginning. I assure you guys,
they're freaking awesome.
And I will not stop. And I hope you guys join me. I hope you join the congregation and continue to be a follower of Ryzin, because again, you guys have no idea what's coming. So follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram @HailRyzin, and interact. Feel free to continue to push the propaganda of Ryzin as well, because together, that is where things happen. As one person, I try to make a lot of noise, but as a collective unit, as a congregation, we can all hail Ryzin. And see, the more passionate I get, the more I get fired up, and now I just want to drop the entire
they're not
speech to each and every one of you. So,
they're not stopping. They're not stopping, man. Hail Ryzin. I must have Ryzin merch. Thank you, Ryzin. Ryzin has wrestling buddies. Yes, he does. They're freaking fantastic. But guys, this has been this episode of The War Room. We will be back this coming Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with another pro wrestling interview. Huge shout out to our amazing sponsor at FISSION Water Bottle. Guys, use the link in the description of this video to save 20% on your first order. It's as simple as filling the bottle up with water, putting in your filtered flavored pack of your desired flavor, and it is great. Helps me get my 150 ounces of water in each and every single day. Love, love, love that water bottle. Also, our merch link is in the description. Once this video concludes, all of Ryzin's clickable links will be added to the description of the video. It'll make it very easy for you guys to find him there. And like I said, guys, we'll be live tomorrow for our SmackDown watch along, Saturday our AEW watch along, and once again Thursday we'll be live again with another pro wrestling interview. Ryzin, if I can just have one more second of your time when the live feed ends, I'd truly appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much, and we will see you tomorrow when SmackDown goes live for our watch along. Thanks, guys. See you next time.